Our guest tonight is Immaculate Maluza, Programs Manager for Center for Human Rights Education, Advice and Assistance, CHREAA. Most welcome to Capital Street Talk tonight.
Thank you very much, Rhodes. I'm happy to be here.
A little bit of your background. Who is Immaculate Maluza?
Well, I'm a law graduate. I'm actually a lawyer by profession. I did my secondary school here in Malawi at Cameron's Academy. Then I went on to Wales, where I did my LOB in law. Then I took a gap year. Then I went on and did the bar in England. Then I came back home.
You don't sound like a Malawian, am I right?
I am Malawian. You know, people will say things like that, but I am Malawian.
So people have said this before.
I think it's a general statement people make. So I always wonder, what does a Malawian sound like? Or what does a Malawian look like? If you say you don't look Malawian, you don't sound Malawian. You know, by nature, I'm Malawian to my core, you know, from where I'm...
Where do you come from in Malawi?
I'm from Daga. It's in Data.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, now we're talking about you being programs manager at CHREAA. How did you find yourself at CHREAA?
Actually, I took an interest in the bail project, which is a project that helps people get bail, and we educate people to represent themselves. You know, a lot of Malawians don't know their rights. So even when they're arrested, they don't know they actually can ask for bail. So the bail project essentially equips people with the right tools to ask for bail. So I heard about the project and I was interested. So I went and I met Victor Mhango, the director, and I told him about, I was like, you know, I'm interested in this project. I think it's a fantastic project. I would like to work on it. And that's how I started.
So it was you approaching CHREAA?
Yes, it was.
When was that?
That was last year in June.
Mm-hmm. What impact have you brought so far at CHREAA, or Malawi in general? I
think, you know, I can't say me personally because it's a teamwork, but I think we've done quite a good job, you know. We've fought for people's rights, you know, the sex workers' rights, in the living on the earnings case for Pimple Banda and others. You know, the sex workers were being abused, so we assisted them. What happened was they got arrested and fined 7,000 kwacha, which is actually was wrong, and we appealed the decision. So the High Court in Zomba found that the sentence had to be squashed, and then they had to be given back their money, which is what happened.
So you do that on pro bono basis?
We do. We do, with assistance of funding.
Not a voice breaking. Do you do that on pro bono?
On pro bono basis, mm-hmm. We do. We actually are a free service. It's a human rights center. Mm-hmm. So it's a walk-in center. If you have a problem, you come in and we assist you as best as we can. If you need a private lawyer, that's a whole other conversation now.
How many lawyers do you have at CHREAA?
Well, technically it's me and Chikondi. And she's currently away doing her master's. But yeah, it's me and her.
So it's two of you?
Yes, it's two of us. But we also hire private lawyers because, you know, if you need someone to litigate the cases, so we hire private lawyers. And they're human rights lawyers who we work with. They're really brilliant lawyers, like, you know, with Mandana Mamblasa, Faustina Mae, Francisca, we have people that we work with on a daily basis to help. And even some of the cases they do on a pro bono basis.
Now, we have seen CHREAA being involved in looking at the welfare of inmates in the country's prisons. You've been in prisons for a long time. Why that interest in the country's prisons?
Well, we're a human rights organization and we're concerned about all citizens. Just because you're in prison doesn't mean your rights become invalid and then negated. Prisoners have a right to health, proper sanitation, and the proper food. So if you look at our prisons, they're heavily congested and the situation there is quite bad. Most of them, you know, it's overcrowded, there's poor sanitation, there's a lot of spread of diseases. So we just thought someone needed to be a voice for this people.
You're also hearing about food shortage in prisons.
Yes, and it's a big problem. So someone needed to be the voice for the prisoners, and we're that voice. And it's something that I am very proud of, and everyone at CHREAA is very proud of.
So you're the voice of prisoners?
Technically, yes.
You mean what?
To mean they are not always able to voice out this concerns. They don't have the capacity to do that. So we just provide them with a means to speak out their concerns and, where necessary, assist them and to empower them to be able to fight for their own rights.
But you're talking about problems like congestion, poor sanitation. Now, you being the mouthpiece or the voice of prisoners, does that solve such problems?
Well, we attempt to solve such problems. If you're aware of the Gable Masangana case, it was about 9 years ago the judgment was given. So nothing has changed after that, because then the court in that case declared that the conditions in prison were actually amounted to inhumane and degrading treatment. So they need to, then that the prison officials need to actually almost half the population in prison. So then where we come in is people are arrested on small charges, those nuisance-related charges, and we will help to get them bail, and those people who are on remand for so long and their remand warrants have expired, we will also assist them to get them bail. So the numbers do go down, and even in terms of the food situation, last year, CHREAA and PASI, with a few other NGOs, wrote a letter to the president, actually, stating their concerns of the same, and he responded favorably. He said he would look into the matter, and for a while, the situation with the food was resolved. But even now, we're still finding ways to help with the decongestion. But it's not fair to say we're not doing anything or haven't done anything, because actually, through the bill project, I think last year, if I'm not wrong, there were about 21,000 releases.
But what do you consider to be your main achievement? I know you've been in those kind of activities to do with prisoners for a long time. What do you consider to be your main achievement?
I think right now, there's a lot. And the biggest achievement, we say, is working towards decriminalizing offenses, like these minor offenses that target normally the poor and aid congestion, like the Rogan Vagabond, which is this year, January, is declared unconstitutional and invalid. So laws like that assist the system to be plugged. So by us slowly working towards removing these laws, we're helping with the congestion problem.
We've talked about a Rogan Vagabond. Critics are accusing you of bringing chaos to the Malawi nation, actually by having that section removed from the penal code. How do you respond to that? Do you want people to be walking freely during the night and in the process be committing all sorts of crimes? Is that what you want as CHREAA?
That's not what we want as CHREAA. That wasn't the aim. I think people maybe are misunderstanding the issue, because even now the police can arrest you if you can't explain why you're in a certain place, and they have evidence to suggest that you're about to commit a crime. They have the power to do that. That particular law, we were attempting to improve the system because it was being abused.
So are you sensitizing the people out there? Because what is out there is that it's like a free-for-all. People can walk at any time they want during the night because there's no Rogan Vagabond.
No, that's not the issue. We are sensitizing people. And, if you look at the history of that law as well, it's a colonial law. It's actually very old. And in other countries like England, and they have since removed it from the statute books. For a long time, for a couple of years now, and there was no chaos in England. And to be honest, there's been no chaos in Malawi either. I think maybe people are afraid because they don't really understanding what was going on. That law, let's say you're going home, you don't have a car, you're coming from your job, maybe you're working hard, you're driving somewhere, or you have a day shift and you don't have a car, and you somehow found yourself late. If you met the police, they were able to arrest you on the grounds of Rogan Vagabond. And for the sex workers, they were being arrested in rest houses. And you can't be Rogan Vagabond in a house or in a place like that.
In a room?
Yes, you can't be Rogan Vagabond. So there was a lot of room for abuse. And I think there's a valid argument to make that every right needs to be protected. So why wasn't it? The judge asked a really good question in that case. He asked, has anyone ever been arrested in Mansochi? And I think that's something to think about, because I don't think anyone ever has. So why was it that only the people who didn't have resources were being arrested? Only the poor found themselves being at the mercy of this law. So I think as a society, we all have to think about equality, because...
So you think it was discriminatory in nature? It
was very discriminatory in nature. It targeted only specific people.
Let's talk about the issue of sex workers. Where do you get the strength from, to be fighting for the rights of sex workers in this country? Because these are the people that the society condemns anyway. Where do you get the strength from?
I don't know why society condemns sex workers. I don't know.
You don't know, really?
I don't know if it's from a religious perspective, or I don't know, but maybe I cannot fully grasp the concept, because I think that is hypocritical in itself.
So you have no problems with sex workers yourself as a person?
I do not, because I can't judge someone for their decisions in life, and they're a person. They have a right to be treated respectfully and with dignity, as per our constitution.
Where do you go to church yourself, if I may ask?
I'm Catholic, so CI.
So from a religious point of view, how do you judge these people anyway?
I do not, because God himself says do not judge. He is the only one who can judge, so I have no power to judge. So it's not up to me to judge. And that's between their God and them. If there's an issue.
You won't tell me that you do that wholeheartedly.
I do.
Behind the scenes, you don't advise them anyway.
What would I advise them about? No, there's nothing to advise them about. If you come to me and you say, my rights have been breached in this way, all I'm thinking is, right, you have been violated. So how do we assist you? It's not to do with your profession. That doesn't define you as a person. I think it doesn't, the fact that they're sex workers doesn't remove them from being citizens of Malawi, or doesn't, stop them from being able to contribute to society or being a positive feature in their families. Or they are people. They need to be respected and they need to be helped when their rights have been breached.
How many have you helped since you joined CHREAA?
There's a substantial amount that we've actually helped. I don't want to give a figure in case it's not the most accurate, but we work on, last year alone we had a significant amount of cases that we've actually helped. People who've helped get, people who find themselves maybe being raped by a police person or not, or just a client, or being abused. And so, but for me, it's a fulfilling job. I enjoy what I do, and
so
I enjoy.
You have no regrets whatsoever?
None whatsoever, and I don't think I ever will.
What does your family say when you fight for the rights of sex workers, for example?
Actually, I've never had a negative comment from anyone in my family about fighting for sex workers' rights. In fact, they were like, oh, it's good, because these are minority in the society, and they're always saying, well, it's a good cause, because you're fighting for someone, because even they understand that it's about assisting people who are disadvantaged and who are being abused by the system, because they have nowhere else to turn to. And
have you ever at any point ridiculed, for example, by critics, labeling you as one of them? Have you ever experienced that,
I've not experienced that, actually, my whole time I've been at CHREAA. I have not experienced any sort of negative attitude to the point where it's taken me back, if that's what you're asking. No. No.
Today in the program, I'm talking to Immaculate Maluza, Programs Manager for CHREAA. What do you make of this other problem that the country is struggling to address, issues of defilement, children being defiled, rape? I mean, it's causing horror to mothers, to children. You, as a woman, how do you view that?
I think it's a very serious issue, and I think we need to work as a society to confront the issues. We need to figure out the root cause of these problems that we're having in societies, and I think what happens most of the defilement cases, it's a family friend or a family or someone that's very known to the victim. So therefore also our culture comes in, because you find that most parents don't want to take the issue further, or because they want to discuss it as a community, but they're forgetting about the child who's been abused. So I think it's an issue that we need to confront, because that child is forever scarred, their life is changed. The parents might have forgiven them, the community might have forgiven them, but that child's life is ruined. So we need to think about those issues, and I think they need to be talked about in the open, because also in our culture, so these things are considered taboo. We don't want to talk about it, we don't want to bring out these issues. But they're things that we need to face and admit that it's a problem in our communities. It's a problem because it's happening so often. And also our legal system needs to be able to handle it, and so does our police force. They need to be able to handle these issues, because you find that most times there's not enough evidence and there's no capacity to investigate. So it brings out all these areas that we need to work on. And as I think sometimes we always think it's the police's job or the courts, but also us as a community, if you see something that happened or you have evidence, go and present that evidence. Don't wait for the police to come and ask you and get it. You have a responsibility as a citizen to go and give that to the police so that they can ably now charge this person.
Do you think it is time CHREAA focused much on such cases as compared to sex workers, for example?
No, I don't think any problem is greater or lesser than the other. So I think if CHREAA was going to take it up, we'll take it up as one of our other programs.
But you're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Why you are here admitting that it's a huge problem in Malawi?
It is a huge problem, but as you can see, it wasn't part of our strategic plan or the focus plan. But with these things, we don't need to be the only actors in here. It's in the criminal justice system. I mean, we can all come up with a plan that helps us work with this problem. It's a community thing as well. And CHREAA, we're an advocacy as well. We're an advocacy group. So it's not hard for us to go ahead and, take this on. But it also has, it has to also be in line with what we were doing at the moment. But in the future, I don't want to write it off completely. In the future, we may focus on that because at the end of the day, it's part of the system, it's part of the problem of the justice system. But I think with what we're doing now, in attempts to decongest the prisons and attempts to also work with the justice system, to lessen the delays and just to help improve it, criminal justice system in whole, I think that will fall under that eventually, and that would help with the evidence problems and issues that when people file cases of defilement that they face.
Now, as a lawyer, do you subscribe to assertions that this problem is still rising or still existing because of the kind of punishment that the people that are involved, the perpetrators of such acts, get at the hands of the courts? They're regarded to be lenient punishments at the end of the day. Do you subscribe to those assertions?
Well, I can't make a general comment because it's on a case-by-case basis, and it depends on what evidence the court is presented and how strong that evidence is. Because they can't just convict someone without any evidence. So if the state didn't make their case, it means the court has no choice but to deliver a sentence that they do deliver. So I think it's also up to the police and the state to present strong enough evidence that condemns this person. Because most of the time, what happens is they don't have enough to go on. So, but I don't think it's an excuse, because there are some cases where there should have been stiffer punishment.
But where a case has been proven beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law, I mean, what do you think should be the maximum sentence to be given?
Well, the thing is, I think the magistrates' court, which is where most of these cases are, the first grade magistrate or second grade magistrates hear these cases, they don't have the capacity to sentence someone to life, but they can actually, they do have the power to submit that case to the High Court for review and review and sentencing. So I think in that case, that's what should happen. It should go to the Higher Court, and if the Higher Court can impose a higher sentence, they should be able to do that.
Quite a number of issues that are hanging, murder cases, people are killed, we know. Until today, people don't know what actually happened. This is a problem in the country. How do you think Malawians can get to know the truth of such cases?
Well, the truth is, you demand for the truth. I mean, there's no other way of knowing the truth unless you ask for the truth. And you actually, as a country, work towards finding it. I mean, there have been incidents in other countries where there've been complaints and there've been things are being investigated, and people have actually fought to have those things investigated and the truth come out. So it's up to us as a nation to decide, do we want the answers? And if we do want the answers, what do we do about it? Then let's sit down and let's do something about it.
So how can people demand for that? Because normally they rely on CSOs, organizations like CHREAA, the media. But talking about the public itself, how can the public demand for such kind of actions to be taken?
There's always social empowerment. I mean, people can decide that, we want this, and you can do a sit-in, you can do whatever you think will bring justice. But I think I can't say this is what you should do, because it depends how we're approaching it. Are we going to the, which party are we approaching? Are we going to the police and saying, look, this hasn't been prosecuted? Are we going to where's the evidence? Are we going to the state and saying, look, where's this? So it's all about the public deciding what sort of action they want to take and going and following that route.
Let's talk about the issue of women empowerment. Do you think women in this country are given the much needed support they deserve for them to make it big, be it in various professions, or we talk about business-wise, politics, women having that space to show what they're capable of doing? I
think there are a lot of brilliant women who are doing great stuff in Malawi at the moment. And, there's always obviously the gender issue. Even when you look at secondary school and primary school, most females actually drop out of primary school at a young age. And that's due to different things in society, the culturals, or they get pregnant, they get married off by their parents. But I think it's unfair to say females are not being empowered, because there are a lot of empowered females, but it's still a problem that there's still a gender inequality. And I think that's a problem that everyone has to work on together to address. The females, it'll take time. And this is not only a Malawi problem. I think this is a world problem, as we've seen recently, even in the States are having these issues. And even when you look at England or the other more developed countries, they do have these issues. I think it's to do with women being empowered. But you see these, I know the American Embassy right now, they're doing an initiative for the STEM program that I think people are going to go, they're targeting young girls 15 to 18 who are going to go to MAST and be trained by Google and Apple and all the other things like that. I think things like that are important. And project like Niziatu, which is a project that empowers girls to stay in school, things like that are important because girls do need to be reminded that they can do anything they want and they can achieve anything that they set their mind to. And I think our culture in itself it's patriarchal in nature. It doesn't look at women in, you're still less than. So, but I think that's starting to change, and I think it will change. And, eventually we'll be saying we're not equal, but we're almost there.
Do you agree with those who say that the biggest barrier for a woman to do better, to do well, is a woman? Talking about Buha Down syndrome. Do you agree that women do fail each other?
Can you give an example? Because I'm interested to see where that notion is coming from.
For example, we had a number of female candidates in 2014 on the presidential ballot. None of them won, but yet we had a lot of women casting their votes.
But is that to do with the women themselves standing, or or is it that the candidate who was a woman, who happens to be a woman, was not just appealing to the community or the society in general, or the
for example, we had Joyce Banda, we had Helen Singh, who were vying for the presidency.
Well, let's not forget Joyce Banda at that time was facing a lot of accusations of the casket issue came out at that point. So let's not forget. I mean, let's look at the States is a great example of this. It's one of the most developed countries in the world, and you'd find that women actually voted for Donald Trump. Quite a large number of women voted for Donald Trump. So, and not Hillary as well. So you start to think, is it actually a Down syndrome, or is it just that candidate specifically didn't appeal to you? Because I'm also allowed as a woman to say,
Are you telling this radio that those women were not appealing to you as women as well, or to Malawi as a country?
I can't speak for every woman, but I'm just saying, I'm giving an example. It could be that they just did not appeal to the public.
You don't have to beat about the bush. This is straight talk, and I'm asking you, do you want to tell this radio that those women were not appealing to the Malawi society?
I can't speak for any other Malawian. I can't speak for anyone and say they were not appealing.
You voted. Did you vote for a woman candidate? If you were around, do you think you would have voted for a female candidate? The ones I've mentioned here, because
I would not have voted for the female candidate, but that's because it didn't appeal to me personally, because the objectives didn't suit mine, and because the plan didn't suit mine. I would have voted for the person that I personally thought was the agenda for the country made sense.
You are at CHREAA as a programs manager, a lawyer by profession. Is that all, or you dream of going beyond where you are today? What's your vision anyway?
Well, my vision is to be able to assist my country in creating a more equal society. And I think that's something that CHREAA helps me do. And I enjoy my work at CHREAA, and I intend to help CHREAA as well, help me accomplish that vision.
Immaculate, it's been very interesting hearing you talk in this edition of Capital Straight Talk. Many thanks that you joined us, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is where we end today's edition of Capital Straight Talk. Today in the program, I was talking to Immaculate Maluza, Programs Manager for Center for Human Rights Education Advice and Assistance, CHREAA.